Welcome back to True Echo, where every story echoes louder than words. Today, we bring you a heartbreaking and powerful tale of honor, grief, and what it means to be seen. When a 73-year-old black veteran sat crying outside a police station holding a folded flag for his fallen son, the officers didn't ask why. They only saw a threat. But just 8 minutes later, the Marines arrived. What happened next will shake you. This is the true cost of silence, and the power of a nation finally listening. Raymond Eugene Ellis didn't plan on ending up outside the Stonebridge Police Department that morning. At 73, his legs weren't what they used to be. His memory sometimes slipped. But there were two things he never forgot: how to fold a flag, and his son's birthday. The flag sat neatly folded in his lap, shaped like a triangle. His fingers gently clutched the creases, the cloth trembling just slightly in the breeze. Dog tags, scratched, old, still clinking, hung from his hand. He stared at the pavement like it held the answer to a question he hadn't spoken aloud. Raymond had walked nearly 2 miles from his house. No phone. No wallet. Not even socks, just the same steel-toe boots he'd worn for years, cracked and worn thin. He didn't even know why he'd walked there. Maybe he just wanted someone to acknowledge his pain. Across the street, Dana Qualls saw him as she pulled out of the grocery lot. The way he clutched the flag, the slight twitch of his head, the murmuring to no one. Something felt off. She called 911, not to report a threat, but to make sure he was okay. That call came in at 11:43 a.m. 5 minutes later, 2 officers pulled into the station parking lot. Officer Chad Bannister stepped out first, posture sharp, jaw clenched. Officer Lisa Rainey followed behind him, more cautious. Neither asked why he was there. Bannister barked a clipped, "Sir, is everything all right here?" Raymond looked up, slowly. Eyes red, rimmed with grief. "Desmond," he whispered. "My boy, he gone." Rainey stepped forward. "Sir, can you stand for us?" Raymond didn't move. "They said he didn't suffer," he muttered. "They always say that." "We need you to get up," Bannister ordered, his hand drifting toward his belt. "Last warning." The tags slipped from Raymond's hand. As he leaned to pick them up, Bannister made his move. The crack of the taser echoed. Raymond cried out, jerking violently as the electric current took over. The flag flew from his lap into the wet sidewalk. His body hit the ground, hard. Blood bloomed on his cheek from the impact. He didn't scream. He groaned like a man breaking in two. And then, just 8 minutes later, the Marines arrived. Lieutenant Colonel Andre Wallace knew the weight of death. He'd delivered over 70 military death notifications in his career. Folded flags. Stoic silence. Mothers gripping rosaries. Fathers going hollow in the eyes. But nothing could have prepared him for what he saw when he and Gunnery Sergeant Melissa Park turned the corner onto Stonebridge Lane. Andre spotted the squad car first. 2 officers. One standing stiff, the other kneeling. But something was wrong. Too much tension. Too many onlookers. Then he saw it. A man, older, face bloodied, lay on the pavement. Cuffed. Still. A folded flag lay soaked in a shallow puddle nearby. "Stop the car," Andre ordered, his voice sharp. Melissa slammed on the brakes. He was already out the door before the engine even cut off. "Hey," he shouted, storming toward the officers. "What is this?" Bannister turned, startled. "Sir, we're handling a situation here." Andre didn't slow. "That's Sergeant Raymond Ellis," he barked. "We're here for him." "You used a taser on him?" He refused to comply, Bannister replied, eyes scanning the forming crowd. He was making a scene. Melissa was already beside Raymond, kneeling, her hand brushing his shoulder. "Sergeant Ellis," she whispered. His lips barely moved. They said. Desmond gone. Melissa's stomach twisted. She looked up, fury tightening her jaw. You tossed a grieving father. Holding a flag. Officer Rainey shifted her weight, guilt beginning to show behind her silence. I need EMS, Melissa demanded. Bannister hesitated. Andre stepped up, towering over him. Call the ambulance. Finally, Bannister grabbed his radio. Across the street, people were filming now. They tossed him, someone said off camera. Even after he said his son died. Melissa lifted the flag from the puddle, wiping it carefully with her sleeve. She stayed by Raymond's side until paramedics arrived. She climbed into the back of the ambulance with him. Before the doors shut, she turned to Andre. Stay, she said. Andre did. And as the ambulance pulled away, he turned to Bannister with eyes cold as steel. You didn't ask who he was. You didn't even look, Andre said. You saw a black man grieving, and you reached for power, not compassion. You know what 8 minutes just cost you? Bannister didn't respond. The rest of your career, Andre said. And the real reckoning hasn't even started yet. By nightfall, the truth had started to spread. The first clip was only 27 seconds long. Shaky phone footage from across the street. It showed Raymond Ellis, crumpled on the sidewalk, his face streaked with blood, a uniformed Marine kneeling beside him. The folded flag lay soaked and forgotten beside the curb. The audio was muffled, but the horror was unmistakable. They tossed him, a voice said. He said his son died, and they still tossed him. That short clip went viral before the local news even aired. On Twitter, it picked up thousands of shares within an hour. By morning, #Raymond Ellis was trending across platforms. News vans from Savannah, Augusta, and even Atlanta began circling Stonebridge like hawks. The Stonebridge Police Department shut down comments on their Facebook page. Their official site crashed from too much traffic. Still, inside the department, silence held the walls like glue. Officer Chad Bannister sat in the conference room, trying to rationalize his actions. He rubbed his eyes and avoided the paused image on the tablet across from him, Raymond's body convulsing as the taser struck. Captain Byron Reeves stood over him, holding the tablet with both hands. You saw this? Reeves asked flatly. I followed protocol, Bannister muttered. He wouldn't comply. He didn't identify himself. He looked. He looked like what? Reeves snapped. Confused. Old. Grieving. I thought he was a threat. No, you didn't think at all. Reeves slammed the tablet down. He had dog tags. A flag. He told you his son was gone. And you still cuffed him face down on the concrete. Bannister looked away, jaw tight. I didn't know who he was. You didn't ask, Reeves replied. You didn't even listen. Across town, at St. Francis Medical Center, Raymond Ellis lay in a hospital bed, silent. The nurses had cleaned his wounds and stitched the gash above his cheek, but the bruises around his wrists were still dark and raw. His vital signs were stable, but his spirit seemed buried beneath the weight of what had happened. Melissa Park sat beside him, the flag now neatly refolded and resting on the bedside table. Raymond hadn't said much, just stared at the ceiling like it held the face of his son. Andre Wallace arrived just after sunrise, setting down 2 coffees. They said he's cleared to go home, he said quietly. Melissa nodded but didn't take her eyes off Raymond. He asked for Desmond this morning, she whispered. I told him again. He just turned away. Andre pulled up a chair. You're not alone, Sergeant, he said, leaning forward. You've got people now. Raymond slowly turned his head toward them. His voice cracked. He was all I had left. Melissa gently lifted the flag and placed it in his lap. I cleaned it, she said. He earned this. So did you. Raymond traced the edge of the fabric with one hand, his eyes never leaving its folds. The room was quiet. Heavy. Sacred. Outside, the world was anything but. A quiet protest had begun across from the police station. At first, it was just a few veterans. Some wore hats. Others held signs. One read, "Grief is not a crime." By noon, the crowd had swelled to nearly 100. Donald Rivers, Raymond's neighbor of 26 years, stood before the cameras. "Raymond Ellis is a quiet man," he said. "Never raised a hand to anyone. Raised a boy with pride, alone, after his wife died. And this is how his country repaid him." That speech aired on every major network before dinner. CNN. MSNBC. Even Fox ran a short segment. By 7 p.m., Raymond Ellis was no longer just a man, he was a symbol. Of what went wrong. Of who we fail when we forget to see. But Raymond wasn't reading headlines. At home, his house still smelled like old books and lemon polish. Desmond's childhood photos sat on the mantel. A birthday gift, half-wrapped, lay untouched on the couch. Raymond had one more place to go. And he was going there in the morning. The next morning, Raymond Ellis stood at the edge of his lawn, same boots, same worn jacket, dog tags in his hand. The grass hadn't been mowed. Desmond usually handled that. Across the street, Melissa Park waited in the front seat of a black SUV, the folded ceremonial flag beside her. Andre Wallace sat in the passenger seat, silent. This wasn't a media event. There were no microphones, no flashbulbs, just purpose. Raymond didn't say anything as he approached the car. He simply opened the door and sat inside. Melissa handed him a folder. Inside were Desmond's final service papers. Official. Clean. Cold. "We're going to the station," she said gently. "You don't have to say much if you don't want to." Raymond stared at the papers. His voice was steady, low. "Oh, I'll speak." When they arrived, it wasn't through the front. The department ushered them through a side door to avoid the growing crowd of reporters. Inside the conference room, Chief Alan Dobbins sat at the head of the table. Beside him, Officer Rainey looked pale, hands folded tightly. Bannister leaned back, arms crossed like a man already on defense. To Raymond's left sat a lawyer. Terrell Baines. Calm. Crisp. A former Army JAG turned civil rights bulldog. Melissa stayed on Raymond's right. Her presence a shield. Before the meeting officially began, Terrell opened a manila folder and cleared his throat. "Mr. Ellis would like to say a few words." Raymond didn't read from notes. "I walked here," he began, eyes fixed on no one and everyone. "Because I lost my son. I didn't know where else to go. I couldn't sit in that house. Not with his voice still in the walls." He paused. "I carried his flag. I sat where I thought someone might understand. But I wasn't met with care. I was met with commands. With volts. With cuffs." Silence fell over the room. "I served 20 years. My son gave 10. We believed in this country. Believed in the uniform. And for that, I was thrown to the sidewalk like a criminal, while still holding his name on my lips." Rainey blinked hard, guilt carving new lines into her face. Bannister's jaw tensed, but he said nothing. Chief Dobbins opened his mouth, then stopped himself. Raymond turned to him. "Don't read me some prepared apology. Just say it." Dobbins exhaled. "You were failed. And we're responsible. That's the truth." Raymond nodded once. Terrell slid a set of recommendations across the table: mandatory de-escalation training, veteran identification protocol, body cam review policies. And, Terrell added, Officer Bannister is to be removed from duty pending investigation. Bannister scoffed. I followed the book. I didn't know who he was. You didn't ask, Melissa snapped. Rainey finally spoke. Her voice trembled. I wanted to stop it. I really did. But I froze. Raymond looked at her for a long moment. You didn't freeze, he said quietly. You watched. Bannister stood. So what? You're going to ruin my career over one mistake. Raymond slowly stood too. You didn't just tase me, he said. You tossed every grieving father you didn't take the time to understand. The room was frozen. Then Raymond turned, nodded to Terrell, and walked out. Outside, a small crowd of veterans and neighbors waited silently. No chance. Just presence. Some saluted. Others placed hands over their hearts. Raymond walked through them, shoulders upright, footsteps steady. You sure you're okay? Melissa asked quietly. Raymond didn't look at her. No, he said. But I'm sure I'm not staying quiet. 3 days later, the largest crowd in Stonebridge history gathered inside the town hall. The usually quiet, half-filled chamber was overflowing. Veterans in uniform stood shoulder to shoulder with young students, pastors, social workers, and local families. Folding chairs filled every inch of floor space, while hundreds more watched from outside on live streams and mobile feeds. At the front, Raymond Ellis sat in the first row. The nameplate in front of him read, Mr. Raymond E. Ellis, U.S. Marine Corps, retired. He wore a pressed white shirt, and though the bruise on his cheek had faded, the scar was still visible beneath the skin. The folded flag rested in his lap again, clean this time, unblemished by concrete or rain. Beside him sat Melissa. On his other side, Terrell Baines adjusted a single-page document Raymond had written by hand that morning. It wasn't long. But it was heavy. Mayor Leonard Grisham took the podium first, his expression tight. He looked like a man rehearsing empathy. We're here to address an incident that has shaken not only our community, but the conscience of the nation, he began. A ripple of discomfort moved through the crowd. Grisham pressed on. Mr. Ellis was failed. We've reviewed all footage. We've heard from witnesses. And we've begun implementing procedural changes to ensure this never happens again. No apology. Just legal phrasing dressed in civic concern. When the floor opened for public comment, the first to speak was Donald Rivers. He didn't need the microphone. I've lived next to Raymond for 26 years, he said firmly. If a man like him isn't safe grieving on a curb with his son's flag in his lap, then none of us are. The room erupted in applause. Someone near the back shouted, "Say it again." One by one, more residents stood. A teenage boy who watched the viral video with his mom. A former Army medic. A retired firefighter. And then, Raymond stood. He moved slowly to the podium. His hands didn't shake. His voice didn't crack. The room fell silent like it was holding its breath. I don't want pity, he said. I want respect. He held up Desmond's dog tags. This was my son. Desmond Clayton Ellis. Not a file number. Not a statistic. A human being. Raymond looked directly at the mayor. You want to fix this? Start by teaching your officers to see grief for what it is, not a threat. You can't train empathy in a weekend. But you can sure as hell start trying. He looked back at the crowd. Don't just stand for me. Stand for the next person who breaks in public and needs a hand, not handcuffs. The applause was thunderous. But this wasn't the end. That evening, the council voted unanimously, Officer Bannister would be placed on unpaid administrative leave pending external review. New crisis response policies were to be implemented within 60 days. Veterans would be consulted directly. For the first time in a long time, something in Raymond's expression shifted. Not peace. Not closure. But purpose. Later that night, on his front porch, he sat with Andre and Melissa. No media. No noise. Just the soft click of Desmond's dog tags in his palm. I almost didn't say anything, Raymond admitted. Andre leaned back in his chair. You said enough to move a town. Melissa smiled. You changed more than you know. Raymond looked out across the lawn. I just hope Desmond saw it. 2 days later, Raymond stood alone in front of his son's grave. The cemetery sat just outside Perry, Georgia, quiet, tucked behind a weathered Baptist church where Desmond used to help clean the windows during summers. The grass was freshly cut, the trees swayed in the breeze, and the headstone, simple but proud, read. Corporal Desmond Clayton Ellis. 1982 to 2024. Beloved son, Marine, dream builder. Raymond carried nothing but a folded paper in his jacket pocket. No press. No ceremony. Just him and the man he raised. He knelt slowly, placing one hand on the cool granite, fingers spread like he was steadying his heart. For a while, he said nothing. Just looked. I tried to do right by you, son, Raymond whispered finally. Didn't expect to outlive you. I don't think any parent does. His throat tightened, but the tears didn't come. Raymond had cried them all long ago. I couldn't stop what happened. But I made sure they know your name now. Not because of what happened to me, but because of who you were. He reached into his jacket and pulled out the folded paper, a sketch Desmond had drawn years ago. A simple house with wide windows and a front porch that wrapped around like a hug. He placed it at the base of the stone. You said you'd build it one day, Raymond said. I'm gonna build it. For veterans like you. For kids who need it. For people who don't have a place. Behind him, footsteps approached. Melissa stopped a few feet away, not wanting to interrupt. I figured you'd be here, she said softly. Raymond didn't turn. He's still with me. I know, she said. The town's planning a community event. They want to name the park trail after him. He let out a quiet chuckle. He hated running. Melissa smiled. Well, maybe now he gets to make everyone else do it in his name. They stood together, looking down at Desmond's name, surrounded by flowers and fresh grass. I've been thinking, Raymond said. About starting something. A foundation. Small. Something that matters. Melissa turned toward him. You won't do it alone. I don't want a statue, he said. I want a porch where someone can sit with a flag in their lap and not be seen as a problem. Back in town, things were already shifting. Officer Bannister had quietly resigned. No fanfare. No public statement. Just a note left in his locker. 4 words, I should have known better. As for Officer Rainey, she didn't leave. Instead, she transferred to the department's new community outreach program. Her first assignment, develop crisis response guidelines for interactions with veterans and grieving families. Her first call was to Melissa. I want to learn, she said. And I want to help. Stonebridge was trying. Slowly. But Raymond wasn't waiting on the town to fix everything. He had work to do. 2 weeks later, in the quiet meeting room of the Stonebridge Public Library, Raymond Ellis stood in front of a corkboard with Desmond's house sketch pinned at the center. Around him were 5 people, an architect, a social worker, a former Marine who ran a homeless shelter, and 2 volunteers with experience in veteran outreach. Coffee steamed in paper cups. Folders lay open across the table. Blueprints. Zoning documents. Donation ledgers. But Raymond kept his eyes on the sketch. We don't need it big, he said, tapping the page gently. We just need it right. He called it the Ellis House. A transitional home. A place where veterans could stay for a few nights, receive job training, get connected to services, or just sit on a porch and breathe. There would be workshops. Counseling. And yes, a wide front porch, exactly like Desmond had drawn. Melissa offered to help with grant applications. Andre connected him with a few friends from his base in Dobbins. Donations began to trickle in, some from local businesses, others from strangers who had seen the story online. No fanfare. No PR campaigns. Just quiet momentum. Back at Raymond's home, the house remained the same. Desmond's medals stayed on the wall. The old dog tag still rested beside the remote. But a framed photograph had been added, Desmond in his uniform, standing next to a sketchboard, smiling. The same smile Raymond now saw in the faces of the people stepping up to help. One evening, a camera crew returned to finish the story. Raymond sat on the same porch where he used to sip coffee with his son. The wind moved gently across his shoulders. A glass display box sat beside his feet, holding the folded flag, clean, preserved, honored. He didn't speak right away. When he did, his voice was quiet, but steady. "I keep thinking about that curb," he said. "About how a place that's supposed to mean safety became somewhere I got hurt." He looked down at his hands, one still bearing a faint scar. "I've learned something since then. People are watching. Even when you think no one sees. Someone does. You're not invisible." Raymond looked up, directly into the camera. "After Desmond died, I stopped making plans. Just walked. Because that's all I knew how to do." He took a deep breath. "But now I wake up and try again. I see strangers who became neighbors. Neighbors who became allies." The video cut to clips, the town hall applause, veterans saluting, a child writing, "Mr. Ellis is my hero," in chalk outside the library, and a sketch of Desmond's house being redrawn by a young architecture student, this time with the words Ellis House Foundation at the top. "If you see someone in pain," Raymond said, "don't assume. Don't judge. Ask. Listen." He stood slowly. Walked to the gate where Desmond once parked his car. Stopped. Turned back. "I didn't ask to be seen. But I'm glad someone finally did." The screen faded to black. In loving memory of Corporal Desmond Clayton Ellis. 1982 to 2024. Loved. Missed. Never ignored again. A narrator spoke gently. Raymond's story isn't just about grief. It's about how we treat each other when no one's watching. It's about the moment we choose to see a human being instead of a threat. And what can change, when we simply choose to listen. Some wounds are visible. Others are folded neatly into the shape of a flag. But every life, every loss, matters. Raymond Ellis reminded us that dignity doesn't fade with age or pain. It just needs someone to honor it. You can't train empathy in a weekend. But you can start. If this story moved you, help us echo it. Subscribe for more powerful, true inspired stories. Comment below, what would you have done in Raymond's place? And share this video so more people remember his name, his son, and what 8 minutes can cost.